Welcome to today's session. What we're going to be up to in the yoga session is working on strength and mobility, and of course all those other lovely things that we do in yoga, like breathing and relaxation. So we are going to start with a seated breathing practice, and you can probably see in the background here I have a few props. Got a chair and a block, a blanket, and a bolster. So you'll need those things too. And a nice empty wall space too would be helpful. So let's go to the mat. Have a seat. Did I mention a yoga strap? That will be what you need to start with. And I've got a bolster to sit on in cross-legged position. You might find it more comfortable to sit kneeling, but the main thing is just to find a seat that's comfortable and lets you be upright. So your yoga belt or strap, let's take that up and put it around your back, where your back ribs are, the bottom of your rib cage, and then bring it forward and cross it over so it's at the front ribs as well. And I like this way of starting a yoga practice because it reminds me to breathe for one thing, just generally, but also to open up to the fullness of a breath. So I've got a good grasp of either side of the belt. And if I inhale in a little bit more prolonged and energetic than my normal inhale, the belt expands slightly. And if I tug very lightly on the ends of the belt, I can exhale fully. Inhale. We've got that really lovely circumferential breath that goes to the back ribs and the side ribs. And we'll take several cycles like this. Feel the broadness of the lower ribs in the back body as well as the side. And then let's say this belt has been just a mechanism for getting in touch with those areas. Let's take 5 or 6 breaths just seated without the aid of the belt. And close my eyes for this. And inhale and exhale with the shoulders relaxed and the facial features soft. And feel my breath kind of percolate out towards my armpits, the armpit chest. Then if you had your eyes closed, opening the eyes. And I'll recross my cross legs, other shin in front. And then sitting up, you might take a little forward bend, just so that you can get the sense that you're sitting squarely onto your sitting bones. I'm going to draw my buttocks back a little bit for that too. And then sitting upright again. Let's do a nice opening for these side ribs. So if you lean out towards the right side, rest your right hand onto the floor out from your right hip, and then bring your left arm up towards the ceiling and overhead to the right side. Press down into your floor hands so that the side ribs lift up. You're not going to collapse there. And open up all the way through the side of your waist and the side of your hip. And then inhale, come up. And other side. Propping yourself up onto your left hand. Bring the right arm overhead. And the left ribs lift a little bit to keep that side of your chest open, that lung open. Come all the way up again. And let's go back to the first side. And this time, as you extend sideways to the right, bend your elbow. So as you flex your elbow towards the floor and bring that left arm overhead, keep the left buttock towards the mat, and you'll get even stronger side body stretch. And all the way up again, and windmilling the arms over to the left side, and the left elbow flexes a little nearer to the floor. Keep a nice lift through the left ribs and the left lung, and all the way up. And give your legs a nice stretch forward. And then fold them back to the original way. Take up this strap that's next to you, and let's bind it. And the width of it will be shoulder width distance. So I'm going to test that out. A little bit too wide. And then that longer piece we'll put to the side with the belt on my arms. Now I tend to hyperextend, so it's really helpful for me in this position to have the belt on the fleshy part of my arm just below my elbows. So I'm going to bring from this position my arms up towards the ceiling, palms are facing in. And then I want to do a kind of isometric strengthening movement for my arms. So I'm going to push out against the resistance of them. And the palms are facing each other as though you have a yoga block between your hands, and pressing in with your hands and out with your forearms. And then notice if you brought your front ribs forward and up, and see if you can allow them to soften down into your rib cage. And then give yourself a break and lower the arms. Change the cross of your legs again. We'll just keep alternating like that. And let's work with the belt for one more time here. And the belt can be above your elbows if your shoulders tend to be stiff or you are not hyperflexive like I am in my elbows. And then let's bring the arms up again and turn. Turn your head to the right. Turn your torso to the right. So where you're turning from the back towards the right side, bring that left side around a little bit more. Keep pressing against the resistance of the belt, and you're probably looking to the right side too. Before we finish here, turn your head back to the left side, and then bring yourself to center, and let's go left. And as we turn to the left side, keep the pressure on the belt, so the arms are fully extended. And then looking around to that left side, turn a little bit more from right to left. You can tell the diaphragm is turning too, because my voice is affected by this. And then turn your head towards the camera, back to center, and lower your arms and rest them for the time being. Extend your legs out Let's do just one more movement here for the upper body. You can feel we're working with the arm movements, shoulders, but also the scapula. And you'll notice this in this next movement. So keep the arms out in front of you this time. Flex your elbows a little bit and imagine that you're hugging onto a tubby friend or a tubby person, or that you're holding one of those very big fit balls. And then let's lift the left elbow, drop your right elbow, and you're doing a lean out towards the right side like you've done before. Keep that left elbow lifted and then release your right hand to the floor. See if you can bring your arm a little bit behind you as you rotate your neck and head and look up. And now feel that in the back body, upper back body. And then let's bring that arm forward once again. Bring that round shape to your arms in front of the body. And then lift the right elbow, drop the left elbow. Do that lean out towards the left side. Prop yourself up onto your left hand so that elbow lifts. And then we're going to move that arm slightly behind the body. The right shoulder blade coming back, the left shoulder blade more forward. And then bring that left arm up, that round shape to the arm, and then drop the arms and relax. Let's do some shoulder rolls. And the other direction. And let's take ourselves into a supine position on your mat for some bridge poses or bridge variations. And lie down as I'm doing with your belt beside you. We are going to use the belt at some point, but let's just start out with some pelvic tilts. So here we are, 2 feet on the floor, near to the buttocks, but not all the way to the buttocks, and the knees hip width apart. Bring your arms down by your side. Oh, actually, rest your hands across your navel center and tilt the pelvis towards you, tilt away. This is a movement on the sacrum, on the base of the spine. So moving from posterior, anterior tilt in a very gentle way, warming up the base of the spine without flattening the back in the posterior tilt. All right, and then let's move on and press your feet into the mat with a little bit more vigor. And then as you do that, you'll begin to lift your buttocks and come up into a small bridge. Let's not stay up, but come down again. And to remind yourselves of the breathing, let's say an inhalation with the lift of the pelvis and an exhale to lower down. One more time, up and down to rest the pelvis. And here, take up your belt. That's that shoulder width distance. And then bring it across your, onto your arms. Bind your arms with the belt. Untwist it here. And then bring your arms straight up towards the ceiling. If you lift your fingers a little bit higher towards the ceiling, you might be able to feel the rounding through your upper back, the spread of your shoulder blades. And then the shoulders rest onto the floor. And when you lift your pelvis this time, we're going to bring the arms overhead. So 2 movements. Inhale, Pelvis lifts, arms come overhead. And exhale to ground and slowly lowering down. The next time that you bring your arms overhead and you're in your little bridge now, pelvis up, keep your arms overhead and then slowly lower your back, upper back, mid back, lower back, sacrum to the floor. And you've got a cross stretch with the arms against the lift of the pelvis and the legs. And coming up once more. Keep your weight towards the inside of your feet, towards the big toe base, and lowering down again. And just one more lift. Keep pressing against the resistance of the belt. And this time when you lower down, bring your arms up, forward, and release the belt, and your arms to the side again. Let's challenge your bridge pose. Press your arms down by your side, elbows are straight, press your hands down firmly into the mat, and then lift your right heel, lift your left heel. Right heel up, right heel down, left heel up, left heel down. Ready to lift into your bridge. There's that posterior tilt as you press your feet. And see what that movement will be like for your feet with your pelvis elevated. Lift your right heel. Lift your left heel. You've got to work your hamstrings, that's what I'm finding, harder than I worked them before, which is not a bad thing. And alternating heels. Last time lifting the left heel and then lowering down to rest for a moment. My hamstrings were almost cramping, but didn't quite get there. Yours might have fully cramped. Let's go one more time. Like I said, we're just trying to challenge some of these muscle groups, the big muscle groups, the glutes and the hamstrings. And then from here, pressing your hands down, your upper arms, your shoulders, you're in your little bridge pose. Now, what would it be like to lift your right foot a little bit off the floor and down? And left foot. And let's go several more times. There's a hip sway that goes with this, but see if you can keep your shoulders from moving. They're your base for this pose, aren't they? And one more time, and lifting the left foot, and then release, and down to the ground. And it'll probably feel very nice to bring your knees towards your chest, and rest your hands onto the front of your knees, and circle your knees a little bit. That does feel just right. All right, and then let's not overlook our abdominal muscles, which we're working to some extent in our bridging. Interlock your hands behind the base of your head, the base of your skull. Elbows are out wide. You're going to bring your knees up. So my thighs are perpendicular to the floor, but my feet are just kind of dangling with my ankles relaxed. From here, activate your abdominal muscles and extend the right foot to the floor. Bring it in again. So a toe tap and bring the leg in. If you feel like your abdominal muscles are holding well here and drawing up the area from the pubic bone to the navel, then you might take your tap a little farther out. But you be the judge of that. Let's just do 2 more of these. Right and left. And then both feet on the floor, arms alongside your body. Separate your feet a little bit wider than hip width and allow your knees to drop to the right side. Just a very gentle rotation for your spine. Look to the left, knees to center, knees to the left, look to the right. And let's go one more round like that. Around is right and then left. And when the legs come over to the left side, let's just keep going over to the left side. Bring your right arm across and come into all fours kneeling position. So, looking like a setup for cat-cow position, kneeling on all fours. Let's do more or less neutral spine, so the spine is parallel to the floor. Bring your chest forward, lead with your sternum forward, and then rotate back. Let these be small movements, and keep the core muscles engaged here. You warm them up nicely. Keep the navel lifted. And little by little, you might be lowering closer to your heels, but that's not entirely necessary. We're just creating some movement through the hip fold, through that hinging at the hip, and then coming forward and opening your chest forward. Beautiful. From here, let's move on to downward facing dog pose. Tuck your toes under, lift your knees, lift your hips. And then let's alternately walk the dog. One heel down, the other heel lifts with the bent knee. And I really like this movement for 2 reasons. One is it gets my hips in a sway side to side, so the base of my spine, but also just that movement for the foot bones, moving through, kind of articulating through your foot bones. Good. Let's hold the pose steady. See what your hamstring stretches like here. And if your hammies are rebelling, let's bend your knees, lift your buttocks up towards the ceiling. You're on the balls of the feet or the backs of the toes, and give your shoulders a good stretch. And then from here, take a walk forward and bend your knees and inhale and come all the way up with your arms just by your side. All right, let's take a standing position in Tadasana and keep your belt by your side nearby. Standing in Tadasana, my feet are a little bit apart, arms loose by the side, backs of the knees soft. And then let's go back to the earlier sense of breathing circumferentially, front of the ribs, side ribs, back ribs. Feel the fullness of your breath. Upper ribs. And then take up your belt. Just wanted to review adjustment that we do. Take your feet hip width distance. For Uttanasana, we do a forward bend from the hip fold. So for some people that maybe don't do yoga, that don't take this care of their backs that we do, instead of a forward bend from the thorax, the bend comes from the tops of the thighs. It helps to bend your knees a little bit for this, and slot your belt in at the tops of your thighs and the base of your pelvis. And then pull back lightly with your hands, and with a soft knee bend, take your forward bend. Instead of going farther than halfway, stay at that halfway point and then elongate the trunk forward. So your head is slightly lifted. You're looking out beyond your mat onto the floor and projecting your chest forward. Little by little, you might want to straighten your legs here. But feel how nicely the chest is open to the breath. And then bend your knees over your ankles, inhale, and come up all the way to standing. We'll take that idea of bending from the hip fold into some standing poses in a moment, but let's do something for your feet before that. I'm just going to stand on the carpeted area here so I have as little as possible between my feet and the floor. And then do these rolls through your feet. Lift one heel to the balls of the foot, and then the other heel. And take a little time. When a movement is as simple as this, it's a good opportunity to pay attention more. So being mindful of really the complexity of the foot, the beautiful design of the foot. 26 bones each foot. Maybe when you go slowly like this, you can feel in the articulation of your feet some more of those bones. So, and just for a little bit of play with this, let's go lift your left heel, lift your right heel, lower your left heel, lower your right heel. On the other side, right heel up, left heel up, right heel down, left heel down. Left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left. If you got confused there, so did I. But anyway, you can feel that idea of balancing for the moment. And let's do one more balancing on your feet. And bringing your arms up to just challenge your balance a little bit more. Inhale, raise the arms, raise the heels. Stay up on the ball of your feet. Exhale, lower your arms, lower your heels. We'll do that for 3 times. In your own time, arms and heels come up. Stay towards the inside of your feet, if at all possible, the big toe base. Might take a little walk if you have to, and lower your arms, lower your heels. One more. And down. Okay, so we're not strictly working on balance in this session today, but you do need your awareness of your feet when we move on to the standing poses. Let's do one strengthening pose while we're at it. Take a spot near to the wall. Step your feet out about 35 or 40 centimeters away from the wall. A couple of feet. And just as a postural check, feel like you're able to bring to mind an upright position with the help of support through the wall. So you've got the back of your head towards the wall, the shoulders towards the wall, and the chin level with the ground. All right, so keeping that contact, bend your legs and come into a partial squat. I am going to do this at least a couple of times. So note that when you have bent your legs, what the angle is behind your knees. So maybe I've come about a third of the way down. So you gauge your own position by the strength of your legs. You can come out of this at any time. Maybe we'll engage our core muscles again. And then slide up the wall. I'm going to come down a little bit lower this time, probably halfway. And lowering down to this a little deeper position. Instead of having your toes clenched or your weight on your forefoot, keep your weight on your heels. For me, that activates my glutes a little bit more. And shoulders relaxed. You may have come out of the pose by now, and that's all fine. Looking after yourself. And let's finish and slide up the wall. And do a shake out through your legs. Maybe a shake out through your hips too. Let's take that pose that you're doing in the wall into chair pose. So with your feet hip width apart. Think about this before you do the movement. You're going to move your buttocks back with a knee bend, but think primarily of moving your buttocks back as you bring your arms up and begin to bend your knees. So at the same pace as you're bending your knees, you're moving the buttock bones back behind you. Imagine that you had that belt on your arms again and you're pressing out against that imaginary belt. Create a little more lift through the pelvic floor, the navel center. And inhale and come up and lower your arms. One more time. Chair pose. So think the hips moving back, the knees will bend, and the buttock bones move back even further. My biceps just a little bit in front of my cheeks and a long stretch through the arms to the finger pads and buttocks moving back. And it may be that you can come down a little bit lower, but it may not also. And all the way up. And exhale, arms come down. A little shake out. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't add the balancing part to chair pose. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm on the carpet again. So arms come up with the sitting back into that chair, and the heels come up this time. Stay towards the big toe base. And then you're going to rise up with the heels up all the way to reach for the ceiling and exhale down. All right, let's take up some of those standing poses that I predicted. What do we need in the way of props? We'll keep the belt around. Yes. Trikonasana. Stand centered on your mat in Tadasana. And as we've moved into spring here, and the weather's been warmer and I've been feeling a little bit more energetic, I've been jumping out into the standing poses, but it's fine if you just step out. And if you are jumping, a little bend of the knees, and hopefully ending up in something like a meter's distance between your feet. Then bring your hands onto your hips, turn your feet to the right, and back to that notion of hinging from the hip fold. This is a side hinge, but nevertheless it's a hinge from the top of the right thigh and the bottom of the pelvis on the right side. And so I'm going to bring my hand into that crease there and take in to whatever extent I can. It's a reminder. Sometimes I don't go at all deeply into this sideways movement. And then bring your right hand down beneath your shoulder. Turn your palm forward and press the back of your hand against your knee or your upper shin bone. And then bring the opposite arm, the left arm, up towards the ceiling. Press a little bit with your right hand, just enough so that you can turn your right ribs forward. Look up at your hand if your neck rotates easily, or for me, straight forward towards the camera. And then press your both feet, inhale and come up, and turn your feet forward. Hands to your hips. We'll set up that self-adjustment. Turn your right foot in, your left foot out. Take a sideways bend. We did some nice side bending at the beginning of the session, so feel that through the rib cage, the waist, and then bring your left hand down beneath your shoulder. Keep the back of the hand against the leg and extend the right arm up towards the ceiling. If I press a little bit against my leg, then I can bring the left side of my chest forward from the left shoulder blade. And inhale and come up. Turn your feet directly forward. And if you're jumping, jump back to center. Otherwise, you walked in. Beautiful. Let's do that all over again. Triangle pose to the right side and stepping out. No, I was meant to be jumping out. I had a little memory lapse there. So turn your feet to the right. All right, now we've got the pattern in our body, I think. So let's do that side bend to the right side, right hand down, left arm up. And what I notice is that I could pay more attention to my base, which is my feet. So my feet are a little bit, my toes are cramped. Extend the toes forward. Keep your weight on the big toe base, right big toe, inner right heel. And then keep pressure back into your left foot. Lift your tailbone and extend the arms away from each other. Inhale, come up. Turn your feet all the way to the left side. The sideways stretch. And the left hand presses a little bit, the right arm extends. Notice your base again, your footing. And inhale and come up. Feet directly forward, and either walking or jumping back to center. So I've been thinking about that jumping part, and for the most part, I've avoided it but I think especially as we get older and our bone health can wane, and that's what's happened for me, that doing a little impact is not a bad thing. All right, and warrior two pose. And feet wide apart. Turn your feet to the right. Bring your hands onto your hips again and take a knee bend right side, where the shape of that position is with the shin bone perpendicular to the floor and the thigh bone more horizontal. And then let's work the arms here. Take the arms out wide to the side. Reach to the very tips of your fingers. Turn your head, look to the right. Allow the right knee to move back a little bit as you bring your right buttock forward. And feel into the back leg. Look to your base. That sense of the toes and the feet. And looking front and center and straight leg. Turn your feet to the left. As you bend into your right leg, the knee not forward of your shin bone. So draw the left thigh back a little bit if that's happening. And looking over your left shoulder. And extending right to the tips of your fingers. Can you straighten the back leg a little bit more? And bring the left knee back slightly. Looking forward and straight. Left leg, feet to center. And jumping or walking all the way back in. Let's take a break in Uttanasana. You're standing forward bend. Fold your arms overhead. Hold your elbows. Separate your feet to hip width distance. Feel where that belt was in the crease of your hips. And then stretch out. And eventually downwards. Just feel the weight of your upper arms and your elbows drawing you downwards through the torso. And then merely drop your arms, release your head and your neck, and come slowly upwards, your arms loose and your head coming up last. And warrior one pose. Let's have our position facing the short end of the mat. Come forward near to the front of the mat. Bring your hands onto your hips and step your right foot back. Oops, your right foot back. Step up, both feet together. Step your right foot back. Step up. That final step back, take it back a little bit further if you can. Good, there's a challenge for your balance. And then bring that right foot around a little bit more so it faces more towards the left foot. Bend your left leg into a lunge. And bring your arms up so that your elbows are just out from your shoulders in that flexed position for your elbows. Palms are pressing forward as though you're pressing against a pane of glass. Then bring your arms straight up towards the ceiling. Allow the arms to be in a V shape. Then turn your palms to face in and bring your arms alongside your ears. Not all the way to your ears, a little separation there. And so imagine that you had the belt on again on the upper arm and pressing out against that imaginary belt. To release from your lunge position, lower your arms, straighten your front leg, and take a step up. And left foot back. And step up. And again, stepping back. And up. This time we go a little further if that's possible. And with your hands onto your hips, take the lunge. Draw the right thigh bone back towards its hip. And bring the arms to that crooked position, elbows out from your shoulders. Press your elbows back, press your hands forward. Reach for the ceiling. Then turn your palms in, bring your arms parallel. Activate the arms a little bit more by pressing out against your imaginary belt. And then at the same time as we straighten the front leg, we're going to step forward and lower the arms. Beautifully done. We'll do one more round with Warrior One pose and stepping right leg back straight away. Bend your front leg. Let's complete the pose. Bring the arms up parallel, or if your shoulders will allow, bring your palms all the way together. And then from here, draw up from the pubic bone towards the navel. Lift your sternum. Lift your chin a little bit. Turn your gaze upwards, and then extend the tips of your fingers upwards. And then lower your chin, lower your hands to your hips, and you're going to step off the back leg all the way forward. And left leg back. Pause. Bend your front leg. Good. And then square your hips. Bring your arms up. Palms all the way together if you can. Otherwise, arms separated and you're working the arms. And chin up. And sternum up. You might, at this stage, if your back will allow it, lean back a little bit into your back leg. Lower your chin. And you're going to step off the back leg and straighten and come all the way forward. Well done. All right, and then last of the standing poses, and we'll move on to a twist after this. Parsvattanasana. So here's a pose that requires you to do two different things with your legs. So in forward bending, the front leg, you bend from the bottom of your torso, the top of your thigh, but the back leg is an extension, and you're extending the front of that hip. So let's take it from the very beginning and start facing the short, the narrow end of your mat, I should say, and we're at the front of the mat. Stand with your Tadasana, your shoulders relaxed. Bring your hands onto your hips and take a step back with your right leg. Square your hips here. And you might, as an aid, we won't use the belt, we could use the belt, but bring your fingertips into the top of the front leg thigh and take a little forward bend there. So So you're retracting that hip and bending from the top of the thigh. And when you've come forward, say about a third of the way, or about a half of the way, the front leg is slightly bent, bring your hands down onto the front shin and telescope your chest forward. Feel in the back leg the right hip coming forward. Now that leg is in extension. That hip is in extension. If you want to go a little further down, you might take your hands further down your shin bone to your ankle or even to the floor. We're going to release from the pose, so bend your front knee well. Bring your hands up onto your front thigh. Press into that front foot and inhale and come all the way up. Step up. Left leg back. So we make a good stability beginning by turning the left foot forward, the left hip forward. And then let's, as an aid, bring your fingers to the top of the right thigh. Begin to take a bow forward. The front knee bends a little bit to take the pressure off the hamstrings. And then reach down along that leg. Lift up your chest a little bit. See if you can narrow the waist and bring the sternum forward. And then complete your downward movement. You might be at your edge, so then just respect that and stay with the chest a little bit more lifted. Turn from left to right. Release the back of your neck. And then bend your front knee. Press into your front foot. Bring your hands back onto your thigh or your hip. And inhale and come all the way up. And step up. Well done. Let's take a chair. So grab a chair and place the chair near to the wall, or right up against the wall actually. And besides the chair, we need a block. So this pose in Sanskrit is a version of Marichyasana, and we're doing it as a one-legged standing pose as well. So I've arranged the chair against the wall. I've got my yoga block on the chair, and right side is facing the wall, just so we're all on the same page. And then let the left leg be the standing leg. Bring your right foot up onto the block. Now that right foot and leg are elevated. And I want to be quite close to the chair. I just took a little hop in closer. And then from here, the twist is turning into the wall and using your hands on the wall to support yourself in that rotation. As I turn from left to right, my right knee wants to drop into the wall. So I'm going to press the inside of my right foot and keep that right knee in front of its hip. And then that will make a more efficient rotation. So hands press into the wall. Feel your standing leg and grow tall from your left hip to your left ribs. And then that's side one, and switch. And left foot up onto your block. I'm quite close into the chair on my weight-bearing leg, my right leg. Knee stays in front, left knee stays in front of the left hip, 2 hands onto the wall, and you turn. Something you might consider is if your right thigh is bowing forward, pull the head of the right thigh back so your hip is directly over your heel. Nice straight line of that right leg. Let's go one more round. And if I step down off the chair, 2 feet on the ground, I'm going to turn the other way this time. So my left leg is my standing leg. I haven't turned to the other side. My left side is still facing the wall. And I'm going to step up my right foot onto the block. Let's see if we all got in the same configuration. Left leg, standing leg, left facing the wall. Then bring your right hand onto your right hip. Bring your left hand onto your right knee on the outside. Stand tall in your weight balancing leg, your left leg, and then turn a little bit until you're facing inwards and you're using the 2 hands to help you turn your torso. You could bring your right arm back. But I find it better, it's more stabilizing for me to have my hand onto my hip. And then let's let all of that go. And one more side to go. Right side faces the wall, right leg is your standing leg. Bring the left foot up onto the chair, the block. Left hand, left hip. Right hand onto your knee. Then little by little turn. You're in a balancing pose as well as rotation for your spine, pulling a little bit on your knee and turning from right to left. Yick. And then release and stepping down and we can move the chair away. Over here, I think. I want to finish our practice today with a restorative pose. And it's one that, I don't know, sometimes you forget about poses. And this one in particular is a really great restorative pose. So I sort of dusted it off and brought it back for this week's classes. So we need some props. I have a little bolster and a big bolster, and I'm going to put them in a configuration where one is crossed over the top of the other. And it makes kind of a seesaw. Now, if it doesn't happen that you have 2 bolsters like that, you can use a rolled up blanket. So if you take your yoga blanket and make it into a tube shape, like a small bolster, that will work well too. However, I have my 2 bolsters, so I'm going to use them in that seesaw shape this way. And when I lie down on my back, on my seesaw, I'm going to have a block underneath my heels. And that is because I'm shorter stature, and I definitely need that for support. And on the other end, a folded blanket. Now, it's a little fiddly, but it's worth it once you get there. You can bind your legs together when you're lying on your back on your supports, and I'll demonstrate that, but it's not necessary. You can have your legs just together without binding them. So when I take my lying down position, I've got these supports on either end so that the angle of my back is not so acute. It's a very gentle back bend. And as I said, I'm going to have a belt to keep my legs together. The nice thing about that is when you use a belt to keep your legs together, you don't have to use your muscles. So I've got here, and hopefully you're able to get into this position too. And the advantage to this particular setup for restorative pose is that you're stretching the hip flexors, you're opening the center chest, the heart center, even more so if you have your arms overhead. And the breathing is quite easy and open. We're going to stay quietly for another 2 or 3 minutes. I notice the breath predominantly in my top front chest. Right out to the ends of my collarbones and what we call sometimes the armpit chest. In another minute or two, we're going to release from this little back bend. And we want to do that kind of thoughtfully. So with a little forward planning. Of course, if you have a belt on your legs, you want to remove that first. And then the next thing will be just to bend the legs and have the feet on either side of the bolster. If you can at all, then lift your hips like you did in your little bridges and remove the bolster or the blankets to the side. If that's too difficult for you, then roll off the bolster to the side. But do take a supine position again. Just lying flat. And bring your knees towards your chest. Just hug your knees in. And then very slowly, and when you're ready, roll to the right side or the left side, whichever is easier, to come up to a seated position. Maybe pull in one of those supports, the bolster, the blanket to sit on. And where we started in this session, in a seated position, draw your buttocks back a little bit, sit squarely onto your sitting bones. Rest your hands onto your legs, draw your elbows back slightly. And just for the few next moments, close your eyes gently. And feel into your breath once more. Bring your hands into prayer position in front of your chest. And we take this last part of the session. Just feel the journey that you've been on from the beginning of the session to now, and all the ways that you've used your body, mind, your breath, and sitting in gratitude for having this amazing body-mind, and for the yoga practice itself and the way that it connects us one to each other. And so we say, Namaste. Thank you.